Hello, my name is Harold Sassman. I have a German name. It should be pronounced Sassman, but I go by Sassman. I have a lot of ties to this area of Texas. My father grew up between Marion and Cibolo, and in those days there was one high school in the county, and so he came and graduated from New Braunfels High School. He worked for the school district. He was principal, teacher, and bus driver in the Schertz High School, and then we moved into San Antonio when I was 4, where he went to work for the Corps of Engineers and then Joski's department store. So I grew up in San Antonio, graduated from Edison High School. I have no brothers and sisters, but I went to college at Southwestern University and graduated from there in '59. Then went to SMU and graduated from Perkins School of Theology in 1962. 2 summers while I was in college and seminary, I conducted youth activities weeks, we call them, youth emphasis weeks. And one of them was here in New Braunfels, and one of them was in Sinton, where I met Nancy. And the great thing about that is there was a schedule for 2 teams, and I was not scheduled to go to Sinton, where she's from. But they called me about a week before and said, "You're not going to go over there, you're going to Sinton." So I went to Sinton, thank God, and met Nancy. And we were married in 1961 while I was in seminary. She spent 1 year with me at SMU, and we began our trip through the conference in churches. We have 3 children. David, who was born in 1964, and Leanne, who was born in 1967, and Terry Kay, who was born in 1983. David is not married right now, and Leanne has 2 children, our grandchildren, Lily and Noah, and Terry has 2 children, our grandchildren from her, who is Braden and Aaron. When I was in seminary, my last year, I asked for a church to have a little income to get married, and received my first appointment, which was a Lampasas circuit. It was 4 churches in 2 counties, and it did not include Lampasas, little country churches. And I started there in June, and Nancy joined me. We got married in August of that year. We commuted from Dallas to Lampasas for the school year, and then, anticipating graduation from seminary, I asked for a full-time appointment, and we went to Very Best, Texas, and had another church named Wall. I enjoyed telling people I was the very best Methodist preacher until I met a preacher named Harold Goodenough. He said, "You may be very best, but you're not good enough." We had 1 year at Lampasas, 1 year at Very Best, and Very Best was a booming city of 7 houses and nothing to do. We looked forward to mail coming, even junk mail, something to read, and I got a phone call inviting me to go to Memorial United Methodist Church in Austin as an associate pastor, and we jumped at that and moved from Very Best to Austin, where we went 2 years. It was in Austin that our first child was born at Seton Hospital. After 2 years at Memorial Church in Austin, we moved to Schulenburg, Texas. And Schulenburg had another church out in the country tied to it. I said 10 miles and 100 years away. It was a German community. The little country church was Freiburg. The church in Schulenburg was mostly Czech people. We enjoyed learning the ethnic way of doing things, the Czech people and the German people, and we were there 2 years. From there we moved to the second church in Kingsville, which was called Christ United Methodist Church. And we spent 5 years there, and our daughter Leanne was born while we were in Kingsville. The church in Kingsville was building a sanctuary, starting to plan one, and we were part of the building of that sanctuary. We left, well, while we were in Kingsville, Nancy attended Texas A&I University and took some courses there. We left Schulenburg and went to Pearsall, which is a town that I did not want to go to, and Nancy and I discussed it. Did we want to go to Pearsall? And we said no. And then the cabinet told me I was going to Pearsall, and we went to Pearsall and had a great time. It was about our favorite church to serve in Pearsall, Texas. We were there 4 years, and then we moved to, where do we go from? To Kingsville, to Kerrville, to First United Methodist Church of Kerrville, which was under a building program as well, a total plant. They were relocating, and they were building everything. And I got to be a part of that. And we were there 6 years and had a great time.
Were you a part of that current church? Is that the current church that's there
yes.
now? Well, it's a beautiful church.
Yes, we were there when it was being built. I built it, I say. And we had an older church that they were sold, and they had to get out of it because the buyer wanted to do business as a savings and loan, and he needed to do it or recharter. So we rented Mount Wesley, and I was the pastor at Mount Wesley for a year. We used the whole campus, even a swimming pool for our youth on Sunday night in the summertime.
Good.
And we were there for 6 years, and while we were there, about 500 people joined, because the new sanctuary and new building really attracted people. Beautiful. If you get a chance to visit and look at it, First United Methodist Church of Kerrville.
Yeah, I was there for Harold Zirkle's kid.
And we left Kerrville and went to Terrytown United Methodist Church in Austin. And while we were at Terrytown, Terry was born, and guess what she was named for Terrytown. And I was 6 years there. Nancy worked with the Mother's Day Out and was the director of it, or the manager of it at Terrytown. The church at Terrytown was a very interesting church with some people well known in politics and well known in business. John Hill, the almost governor, was a member. Carol McClellan, the mayor of Austin, was a member. And we had a lot of people who were teachers at the University of Texas, and a lot of doctors and a lot of lawyers in that church. We spent 6 years at Terrytown and then left to go to Coker United Methodist Church in San Antonio. I liked going to San Antonio because that's home for me. And my mother even joined the church. My father was deceased, but my mother joined the church. And we enjoyed 7 years at Coker Church, a church of about 2,000 members. And we had a good time there. Nancy taught in the schools there, the Northeast Independent School District. And then the bishop asked me to become a district superintendent, which I was happy to do, especially over my hometown. I was the district superintendent of the San Antonio district, which included New Braunfels. I came to do church conferences here in New Braunfels. I remember the first time I had a church conference here, John Lowry was the pastor, and I told him about some of my experiences in churches, and the one that when I was to receive a report from them, the secretary took the calendar off of the wall and told me everything the church did for a year. And I told John I should have never said that to John, because when I came to New Braunfels, he took the calendar down and had Cindy Meyer read every meeting that New Braunfels had for a year.
Oh dear.
After being a district superintendent for 7 years, I retired in 2002 and received an offer or an invitation to become associate pastor here in New Braunfels, which we really liked because I didn't know what I was going to do in retirement. I'd rather stay in the church, but not full time. And we have a house at Canyon Lake that we moved into, and so it just suited us to a T. It's 15 miles from our front door to the church's front door. When I came to New Braunfels First Church, I did whatever needed to be done and became more a pastor of pastoral care and some teaching and some preaching and doing liturgy and visitation of hospitals and nursing homes. I like doing all that, and I've enjoyed working with the pastors that have been here, John, Larry Altman, Keith, Wyatt, and now Jason is a delight to work with. So we've been here now 12 years, and we love this church. I think it's our favorite church of all of them, and the staff is a great staff to work with. We all like each other. We're teamwork. We do things together, and I'm looking forward to being here for a while more. I think that's kind of my...
No, I want you to tell me a bit more about the circuit, when you worked the circuit, when you first began, what that was like, how many churches you had to meet, and what... That sounds hard to me, so would you explain that a little bit, please? Starting with land passes,
they had a schedule of where I preached, and it was different every Sunday. One Sunday went this direction, one Sunday went this direction, and they were spread out over 2 counties. They were Kempner, Chapel Hill, Ogles, and Ocala, which is close to Fort Hood. Then Very Best had a church at Wall, and it's since closed down. At Wall, I had my first wedding, and I think I had a funeral at Lampasas.
I think she wants you to go back there and talk more about the circuit.
Yeah, what did you mean by a circuit? How large were those churches? The small, what kinds of...
They sometimes, Methodist Church will put several churches together to make a job or a position for someone.
Right.
And so I had one church that had about 50 members. That was Kempner. I had another church that had about 20, another church about 20, and another one about 15. And I went around. Every church didn't have worship every Sunday. One just had evening worship.
Okay.
And so it was a schedule that I had to follow. And they were in Lampasas County and Burnett County. The Very Best Wall, we lived in Very Best and served Wall and Very Best. Very Best was a church of about 70 members, and Wall had a membership of about 20. So I had less there than I did on the circuit. And there were many times that I wondered, why did I leave the circuit? But the circuit was considered part-time, and Very Best Wall was considered full-time. There was so little to do at Very Best. I remember going to the district superintendent, Lawrence Brown, and saying, I don't know what to do. There's nothing going on. And he said, read. And I said, I've been reading, but I want to do something. And then I told him I was going to go to Austin as an associate pastor. And he said, you'd give up your own church to be an associate pastor? And I said, yes. Have you ever been to Very Best? So we enjoyed going to Memorial Church, which was about 800 members. And I was associate pastor to Milton Dare. Then we went to...
Well, you've already told about all of that, right?
Well, I'm not familiar with circuits, and I didn't know just exactly what was involved in the circuit.
More than one.
I bet a lot of people here are not either, that would be watching. And the other thing that I was curious about was your involvement with Stephen Ministry here. If you would talk some about that.
When I talked to John Lowry about coming to New Braunfels, he said, I want you to be in charge of Stephen Ministry. I knew what Stephen Ministry was, but I'd never been in a church that had it. I tried to have it in Coker, but the people wouldn't go with it. They felt like Stephen Ministry was something that preachers wanted so they didn't have to visit people. And they had a negative feeling about it. But here it was positive. I went to training the first year and became one of the leaders of student ministry. We have a strong student ministry here, and I enjoy it. I'm the staff representative to the student ministry at our church.
Tell people what student ministry is. Of course, I need
Student ministry is a group of people who are trained for 9 months in how to relate to people who need a friend. Many shut-ins or persons who are in nursing homes, and they develop a relationship and usually go to see that person once a week. And then we supervise the people who are out there, the student ministers. They're not just set free to go do things. We meet with them and go over what they're doing, and the word is confidential. We never allow our people to talk about who it is that they're referring to, because we think people want privacy about what they say to the student minister.
I agree, thank you. Anything else you want to say? We'd be glad to take it.
Nancy may want to say something.
No, when I first got married, I thought, oh, this is great. I'm marrying the man from SMU. You know, he was going to seminary. Little did I know what was all involved. I'd always been in the church anyway, so that was not hard. But I enjoyed being in the different little towns that we were in. I went to school in about 4 or 5 places, so, but
I relate to that.
yes, oh yeah. So, and the kids were fun, and they didn't seem to mind moving, and so I didn't mind that much. It's just the last move from Kerrville to Austin. One son was going to be a senior in high school, and then and then Leanne was going to be a freshman. So that was a little tough.
It's hard when they're in high school.
It was, and we really did like Kerrville for them. It was a good place, but you go where you sit, so that's what we did. And that's the first time, too, that we didn't have parsonage. Most of the time we were furnished with a place to live and the furniture and everything. But that was the first place in all our ministry we finally got to there that they had started buying. The pastor would buy his own house or rent it or whatever he wanted to do. So we had a hard time finding a place in Austin, and we had no furniture, but then my dad said we could have all of his, so we started out that way again with somebody else's furniture. But it's worked out so far.
Well, and your experiences with being told one Sunday you were going to another place and you having to move very rapidly, how many times did you have to do that? How many years? I know that Joe had said it was better now that they didn't tell you, you knew ahead of time.
Yes.
But
they used to when they first started, they would do that at conference. They'd have runners where Harold would be a runner at first, and he'd go bring a preacher and then talk to the DS, and they'd say, okay, we're going here, and then they would announce it all that day, or anyway, it was really quick. But like Joe Ray said, now they give you, like you've already told them, and conferences even later now, so they have a couple more weeks even.
well, I know, I'm sure for a teacher it was hard to move in
And then try to get another job.
1 week and try and get
Right.
another job, and yes, all that. It's very difficult.
But I really have enjoyed it. It's been a great ministry, and I know he's still in it, but I don't know what else I would have done.
She helps me. She plays the piano, has done that for worship. She does Christian education with children. She's sung in a choir before. She had a youth choir in Pearsall that went everywhere and had a great time. She's been very active at my side, and sometimes in front of me in what she does. I wanted to mention one other thing about New Braunfels. When you are going into the ministry, the first step is get the approval of your church, which I had Los Angeles Heights in San Antonio. The second thing is for the district to vote on you. The meeting, the district conference where they voted on me was held in a sanctuary of First United Methodist Church, New Braunfels. So when I walk in there, I remember that when they voted on me. And then they asked me to tell about my calling before everybody. And I remember doing that too. So those are memories of New Braunfels.
New Braunfels, oh good. God, if that's, you know, whatever you want, that's it. We're welcome, glad to have any more you want to give, Charles. If that's it, well, that's great. Thank you.